Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 2nd of December 2020. And today is the day after the eth2 beacon chain went live. So that's been a crazy kind of 24 hours in the Ethereum ecosystem, and I'm going to talk a bit about that today. But before we move into that, I did want to do a quick market recap. So as we can see here on the ETH chart, we definitely had a little bit of a eth2 pump, as I mentioned yesterday, that I thought we would have. You can see it on the chart here, right? We went from basically about $600 or $595 since the last episode, went up to all the way up to like almost $640, and then it kind of like crashed from there, and we went down to like what was it here, $560 after that within, I think it's about an hour and a half. And the funny thing is that this actually coincided with Bitcoin hitting almost 20k again. So, Bitcoin was at its all-time highs. ETH2 hype was running wild, like we were approaching launch, and we had this run up, and I was looking at it being like, this doesn't feel organic, right? If it was organic, the price action would have already happened. It doesn't just happen because, everyone just suddenly clues in that ETH2 is going live, right? So, I saw that, and then I was saying to some friends, I'm like, guys, I think this is gonna crash, right? I don't trade on this sort of stuff, and obviously this, nothing I say here is investment advice, but, I've been around the block a few times, so it was funny to see that play out. And then, you can see on the chart here, we went down, bounced all the way back up to 620, and then back down, and we've just been ranging since then. As I've said every time, we're still in an uptrend. This doesn't change anything. I think that, we're gonna keep going higher, and I think that we just had to kind of like reset this and get rid of the hype, right? And get rid of the kind of like hype driving the price primarily. So there was that, and as I said, Bitcoin, same deal. Like you look at the charts, they're both 30-minute charts. They're basically identical. Bitcoin went to 20k, came down to like 18.5, did the same run up to 19.5 again, came down, and just been kind of ranging ever since. So yeah, that's basically the same pattern on ETH and Bitcoin there. And the DeFi Pulse Index, I think, has actually been performing better than that. You can see here it's still kind of like in a general uptrend right now. I think it kind of like didn't really care what ETH and Bitcoin were doing. It just continued its own uptrend, which it seems to want to continue to do right now. So going to be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. All right, on to the ETH2 news. So yeah, we went live yesterday. The beacon chain went live. The launch went really well. It went off without a hitch. I was on the live stream with the ETH Hub guys, with the DeFi Dad from Yield TV, / DeFi Dad YouTube channel, and a bunch of other really, really cool Ethereum people. And we were watching this go live, it happened. We saw on this page, if you were on it earlier on Beacon Chain, or Beacon, CHA.IN is the main kind of block explorer I use. So if you're on this page, you would have seen a kind of like a graphic with a bunch of blocks in it here, which was basically, what this kind of website does to monitor the health of the Beacon Chain early on. And immediately we saw validators coming online, start proposing blocks, testing the blocks and things like that. And we had, immediately following the launch, or about like a few minutes after, we got up to 85% participation. So there was 85% of validators, proposing and attesting to blocks. And then since then, we've actually gone all the way up to 97%, which is amazing. That means, 97% of all validators are validating and are on the network and doing what they should be doing. And the network's been going well ever since. People are earning ETH, right? People are making money. It's still locked, of course, and you can't kind of like cash it out yet or anything, but people are earning rewards. They're staking their ETH for the first time ever. So that was all super, super exciting. And for those watching on YouTube, you can see here that, the blocks are coming through, blocks are being finalized. The network health is quite amazing right now. As I said, launch went much better and much smoother than even like the most optimistic people expected. Because on the test nets, we saw that the launches didn't really go, as smooth as we wanted them to. They were never 100%. It was more like, 90% or something like that. Whereas I think it's safe to say that the mainnet launch of the Beacon Chain is basically 100% at this point. It went as well as we could have hoped for. And I think that's got to do with the fact that there's actually actual skin in the game now, right? People have real ETH on the line. You don't want your validator to be offline. You don't want it to be, doing nothing or throwing errors. You want it to be proposing and testing to blocks so that you earn rewards and you don't, basically get penalized for it. So yeah, amazing launch there. And for those who don't know, there's actually a field in when you're a validator, a field of text that you can fill in with like a very short kind of sentence, and you can put whatever you want in there. So anytime that you propose a block, it's called graffiti, will basically go into that block and stay there forever, and you can see it on block explorers and things like that. So the first ever kind of like block that was proposed was done by someone called Mr. Fahrenheit. He was in the ETH Staker Discord, and his first graffiti was Mr. F was here, which is apparently a reference to Queen, which was quite funny. But it was quite funny that this is like the Genesis kind of message, right? Mr. F was here, and I speculated that people are going to be making memes about this. They're gonna, they might go as far as like making a kind of like cult religion around this. I don't know, maybe. We've seen kind of religions pop up for sillier things than that, throughout the internet. Like, you can think, I'm not talking about just structured kind of religion. I'm talking about religious organizations in general, or like, I guess any community can be regarded as like a religion, and there's like followers of it, right? There could be people like, who's Mr. F, right? Maybe not, but it's just a fun little thought experiment there. And since these kind of like this block, there's been more graffiti coming in and things like that, and people are putting all bunch of random messages in. I'm not sure if this website beaconscan.com has a kind of maybe they have a section for it. I don't think so. They have a chain liveness section, which is really cool, so it shows you how healthy the network is. Seems like the network has been like in amazing health pretty much the entire time, which is really cool to see as well. Another website I like to keep track of is this one here. Of course, I'll link all this stuff in the YouTube show notes and the podcast show notes, but this is the eth2 fork monitor from Alex Stokes. So this basically monitors all the clients and the chain and will report if there's a kind of fork going on in the network. Now, we haven't seen that, which obviously is very good. Seems the chain is very healthy, as I just showed. So nothing to worry about here, but still a cool kind of website to keep an eye on, especially if there is a fork. This is where you can quickly go to see what happened and what block it was forked at. There's a new Twitter rewards bot called eth2 rewards bot, or at eth2 the number 2 bot that you can follow. This was created by the same guy who created the bot that was following the deposit contract. His name is Real Mills, or Ryan Miller, I'm pretty sure. So definitely props to him for creating another really cool bot here. So what this does is it basically tweets out every now and again the current reward rate. So as of 12 hours ago, it was 18%. The participation rate, which is 95%. The number of active validators, which is over 21,000. And the more interesting information to me is the wait time. So for those who don't know, there's actually a wait time to get into the Beacon chain to start validating. The Beacon chain can only accept 900 new validators a day. And currently there are over 6,000 validators waiting to be accepted, which means that the wait time is about a week. So if you deposit 32 ETH now, you're going to be waiting a week before your deposit is accepted and before you can spin up your validator. So, this was obviously not the case until the minimum was reached. So, once the minimum was reached, anything after that was put into the queue. And the queue obviously gets longer the more people in it, right? That's very obvious, but, we could see with exchanges now, coming out with these staking products, as I discussed yesterday with the Coinbase staking, we could see more of these longer queues as time goes on. As more people kind of like quote unquote FOMO in or start staking their ETH. So that's something to be mindful of. If you want to get in, better to get in now rather than wait. I'm pretty sure this wait time's over a week at this point. Like this was posted 12 hours ago. Maybe if I check out the rewards bot here, there hasn't been a tweet since then. I'm assuming this is going to tweet like every 12 hours or something. But yeah, and definitely get in sooner rather than later, I think, because you don't want to be missing out if you're planning on staking. And at this point, you're missing out on a week's worth of rewards, but that comes with the territory. This is how it's designed. So yeah, definitely go give this bot a follow as well. It's really cool. Ryan Watkins. So Ryan, I spoke about this yesterday, the Masari Crypto ETH2 report that they've put out. So Ryan Watkins is basically one of the main people that wrote this report. And he's put out a really nice thread today about how ETH2 transforms, Ethereum, the blockchain, but what does it do to ETH, the asset? Now, for those who have been following kind of a lot of the work that myself, Eric Connor, David Hoffman, Ryan Sean Adams have been doing around this, we've really been pushing this kind of narrative of ETH being like this super asset, right? This kind of asset that does all these different sorts of things. So, it can be a store of value asset, it can be a capital asset, it can be a commodity. So examples of this is basically commodity is like oil in the real world, right? So ETH as used as gas. Store of value, of course, is like gold and things like that. ETH used as a store of value. I think we're seeing that already, especially with all the ETH used as collateral within DeFi. And then you have capital assets that generate a return or income. Now with staking, ETH has become all of these three things at once, right? You can stake your capital asset or your ETH to earn ETH rewards in ETH2. While doing that, you can hold it as a store of value, and you can also use the ETH as for transaction fees, right? And as oil. Now, obviously, ETH isn't like oil yet; it's not burned when you use it as transaction fees. But with EIP-1559, that's going to change. So yeah, we're getting there, right? So this is a really good thread from Ryan here. I actually recommend going to follow Ryan. He is amazing. Does amazing research at Masari, and a lot of it's Ethereum focused. So he's a great follow here. But yeah, he basically explains how this kind of happens and how with ETH2 the overall issuance of Ethereum is going to be dropping a lot more. And then, he goes into how basically what I just mentioned, how ETH is taking on all these different properties on the way to ETH2. So definitely go check out this thread. They have a discussion happening. I think maybe it already happened or it's going to happen today with Camilla Russo, David Hoffman, Ryan Watkins, and Marish Schmidt. I think that's how Schmidt. I think that's how you say her surname. Basically focusing on the shift to proof of stake and what it means for ETH as an asset. So recommend checking that one out as well. All right, I'm going to refresh the page here. So Vitalik put out this kind of, I guess like a bunch of stats here around ETH2, and basically it's kind of like stats on decentralization around ETH2. So for those watching, you can see here that basically the participation count is over kind of 3,000 in terms of unique depositors. The Nakamoto coefficient is up from 25 to 34, which is a measure of decentralization. The Herfindahl score is down from 0.0164 to 0.0126, and down is better because that means 30% the network is more decentralized in terms of like the amount of capital with unique depositors. So I remember when I tweeted about it a few days ago, the top 10 stakers held like I think 35% or something of the total ETH staked, and now it's come down over time. I'm pretty sure that's under 30% now. So yeah, this was just some really interesting stats from Vitalik. I'll link it so you can go take a better look at this, so that you can take a better look at all these charts and stats here. All right, still keeping with ETH2 here, since that's what the last 24 hours has been about. This actually just happened about an hour ago. So a validator, the first validator got slashed on ETH2, and they didn't get slashed for the wrong reason or anything. This is the right reason. They got slashed for block equivocation, which means that they were basically trying to run redundancy on their validators, which meant that I think they might have double signed on a block. So what this means is that if you have one validator running on one PC, and then you have that same validator with the same validator keys running on another PC, and they both attest and sign the same block, you're going to get slashed for that. Because that is an attack vector. So, and this, the penalties for this have actually come down. So this person only lost 0.25 ETH. So it's come down for the first iteration of the beacon chain. But as we get to, as we ramp up and the beacon chain becomes, more decentralized and is live for longer, the actual penalties are going to be a lot higher for this. So this is something you never want to do. If you're trying to set up redundancy for your validators, I really think that it might not be worth it for at this stage unless you really know what you're doing, because the penalties for being offline are very, very favorable right now. I remember seeing a tweet from Vitalik that said that you can be offline for basically 30% of the year and your validators will still be profitable. So, if you're offline for 30% of the year, right, that's like a third of the year or just under. So 3 months, or more than 3 months, I think 4 months, 3 to 4 months. Like, why are you offline for 3 to 4 months, right? It's very rare that you're going to be in that position. So definitely better to just let your validators kind of go offline for a few hours, maybe if they go offline while you're sleeping, rather than trying to set up some fancy redundancy processes and getting yourself slashed, right? Because that's a much bigger penalty. All right, this thread from Cooper today, again, eth2 thread. I thought this is very interesting. Cooper's an awesome follow as well, so definitely go follow him on Twitter. It's Cooper Trooper. You can go find him. I mean, I'm sure I'll link the thread in the show notes anyway, so you'll find him there. So he basically goes and breaks down what Phase 0 actually means, what's great about the beacon chain and its implications. So this is really good for those of you who may be confused about, why do we care about the beacon chain, right? Why do we care about Phase 0? What's coming after? How are we going to get to a full ETH2? Obviously with shards as part of Phase 1, and then Phase 2 is state execution. A lot of these things are still very technical, and I don't blame you for not knowing what they mean. So Cooper does a very, very good job of kind of breaking it down here. So definitely go check out his thread. But I guess if I was to put it into my own words, Phase 0, beacon chain, if you think of building a house, it's like the foundations of a house. So you need to have these in place before you can build the house on top of it. Like, you can put all the plumbing in, and you can put all the wiring in, and the actual put the house together, right? You need those foundations. So that's what the beacon chain is. Phase 1, the shards, you can think of, like, as I said, the plumbing, the kind of like the wiring, the walls and things like that, and all that sort of stuff, right? And then Phase 2, which is state execution, is putting it all together, basically. And what state execution means is it's basically a fancy way to say what we have on ETH1 today is doing like transactions on the shards, right? Whether that be a transaction of just sending ETH and tokens, or a transaction of a smart contract, like depositing ETH into Compound or something, or like some other smart contract stuff. That's what we mean by state execution. So that's very simple way of explaining it. Obviously there's a lot more to it than that, but just to give you some context, I figured that I would try and describe it as best I could. All right, next on the agenda here. So this isn't just ETH2, but this is a really, really awesome tweet from Vitalik. So this is a roadmap that he put out back in March, a roadmap diagram, and he's updated it today with a bunch of progress bars. So as you can see in the image, for those of you who are watching, you can see here that each of these items on the roadmap has a progress bar in green. So you can see, it's really fun. You can see where my cursor is that Phase 0 launched, right? And that's fully colored in, and all the prerequisites before it were colored in as well. And then up towards the top, you can see some ETH1, ETH1.x stuff that's going on. Everyone's favorite EIP-1559. You move down, you have account abstraction. You have a bunch of other really important things there. So basically, this will give you a kind of like a bird's eye view of where we're at in the Ethereum roadmap, and kind of like what it means going forward. And then I think the bottom half here is things that maybe people have heard of, but these things aren't as important to the ETH1 and ETH2 roadmaps as the top half. They're like nice to haves and kind of advanced research. They're not critical to the ETH1, ETH2 roadmap. So yeah, this is really cool. I recommend going and check out the full diagram. I'll link it in the show notes because it's pretty hard to see on the video, I'm sure. But I also wrote about it in the Daily Gwei as well, so you can go in the Daily Gwei newsletter, which you can go read and check out. I had some comments around it on there as well. All right, last thing to talk about. So this report by Tim Roughgarden on EIP-1559 has been talked about for a while now. So Tim Roughgarden is a professor at Columbia University, and he's a theoretical computer scientist. He is well regarded within his field for doing a deep dive analysis on things like EIP-1559. So that's why he was kind of commissioned to do this. He produced a very long report. I think it's a 58-page report. It is obviously going to be super technical, so I do not recommend you spending your time to read 60 pages of the report unless you want to, because there's no need. He actually did a really amazing job of summarizing it in his thread. There's 14 tweets here. Basically, the key takeaways are that he doesn't think that there are any issues with EIP-1559. He thinks that they bring a lot of positives to the network, both from a user experience perspective and the fact that it burns ETH. I think his only concern was that it might introduce a new attack vector that, where was it? I think it was somewhere here. Here we go. Variable size blocks enable a new attack vector, but apparently it is very, very expensive to do this, so it's not a major concern. So very, very positive, right? This is just another piece on the 1559 roadmap. It's what we needed to convince a lot of people about 1559 and if it was game theoretically sound and all those sorts of things. And as I showed on the roadmap before, we have 1559 at the top here, which looks to be about 65% complete. So I think, it's probably 70-75% complete now with this research report out. I think the last 25% is implementation. There's a few things that need to go into ETH1 as prerequisites before 1559 can go in, which is going to take a little while. But I fully expect this to go live, hopefully later next year. Hopefully not early 2022. I think that'd be too late. I think we can get it done by late next year, but it remains to be seen. Obviously, like giving dates in Ethereum's roadmap is quite hard at times. But this, to me, we have ETH2, the beacon chain going live. We have the ETH1 to ETH2 merger, and then we have 1559. I think they're all equally important, right? I think they're very intrinsically linked in terms of importance and kind of like their importance for the network overall. So very, very happy to see Tim Roughgarden complete his report here, and I send my thanks to him for taking this on board and giving us a kind of non-crypto perspective, right? This, as far as I'm aware, Tim doesn't spend all day every day in crypto or in Ethereum or whatever. He spends it in the traditional kind of like computer science world, where he's got more context and brings a fresh set of eyes to this stuff. So yeah, thank you, Tim, for doing this report. As I said, the thread will be linked in the show notes. You can go check out his thread and check out his report if you would like. All right, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss one of these episodes. It's also available in podcast form, so you just have to search the Daily Gwei podcast on Google or something, and it'll come up with the podcast there. So if you prefer to listen to it, but yeah, obviously you'll get a lot more context if you just watch these episodes. But I understand that some people like to listen to it in the background, which is completely fine. So definitely go check that out as well. And yeah, go subscribe to the Daily Gwei newsletter and join the Discord if you haven't yet. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.